Good afternoon then, everybody. Welcome back to the merchant track. Is everyone refueled? Belly's full, yeah? Did you all get some of that nice cheesecake? Did you maybe get 2 of those little cheesecakes? Yeah? Well, yeah, we've got, an afternoon now with even more great sessions. So if you enjoyed this morning, some real killers here as well. Again, normal sessions and another panel coming up. And then obviously at the end of the day, we've got another keynote for you as well. But to get us restarted, we have Allison Hutchison. She's CEO at Penneys, an award-winning fintech charity making digital giving affordable, sustainable, and feel good. Allison is also a senior independent director at DFS, Yorkshire Building Society, and Foresight Group Holdings. And in 2016, Allison was awarded a CBE for services to the economy and charities. She's with us today to explain why it's good to do good. Offer a warm welcome, please, to Allison.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's certainly been a fantastic morning, so I hope that I feel very honoured to be able to kick off this afternoon. And I'd like to kick off by, first of all, saying a huge thank you to JH Group for inviting Penneys to be the charity partner this year. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So I guess I wanted to start, clearly it's good to talk about why it feels good to do good, because it's a feel-good thing to do. But I thought I'd start by just trying to get a little bit of audience participation. So here's your first question. I'd like you to lift your hand if you think you would actually be walking in a street, you see a penny, do you ignore it, or do you actually bend down and pick it up? Who's going to bend down and pick up a penny off the street? Hands? Yeah, what would you say, about 30%? You're more stingy than the average. So the average is 40% of people would bend down and pick a penny off a street. And with inflation where it's going, with the challenge of what's happening in society, people just don't value the penny. And yet at the end of the day, it's the lowest little unit. And this little thing, this little humble penny, actually has a huge job to play in society. And I'm going to share a little bit about that later on, about why it's important and how you might want to join and help us do that. Because since Penneys launched as a charity, we're here with a very simple mission to make it easy and affordable for people to give, regardless of what channel people are choosing to check out and regardless of what mechanism they're using to pay. Just taking the old-fashioned challenge of dropping coins in a box and representing the way we operate today. Well, here we are nearly 12 years later, and I'm delighted to say we've never had a retailer switch off that switched on. We've had 180 million consumers' donations, raising nearly £44 million and granting out to 800 different retailer-nominated charities. So the next time I ask if you're going to ignore this little penny sitting in the street when you walk past, just think about the power that could be if you pick it up and made it go as a force for good. It's absolutely phenomenal what one can do. And actually, at the moment, every second, somebody somewhere in the UK or Republic of Ireland are choosing to click and donate their pennies to charity. But I use that as a little bit of a metaphor for doing good. And we'll come back to pennies a little bit later. But as individuals and as companies, there's far more pressure on us to be more purposeful, to really work out what we're doing with climate change, to be able to give back to our colleagues and make sure we've got a diverse, talented work group, to give back to our communities, and to have a level of governance and transparency and reporting that none of us ever imagined 10 years ago. So there's a huge challenge on businesses, and sometimes it can feel just a little bit too much, which is why I love this quote from Sydney Smith. Because the one thing you can't do is do nothing. The whole point is life starts with baby steps. That's how we come into the world. Money starts with baby pennies. That's how we add up in the world. And so for me, my challenge to all of us as individuals and as representatives of our organizations, to just think about how you can get started. So the question would be, why do people bother about having more purposeful organizations? And by the way, when I talk about purpose, I don't mean something up here nebulous. Purpose has got to be rooted in having a commercially successful organization. I believe that P in profit is fundamental, but as is protecting the planet, as is looking after people, and as is bringing a level of peace, particularly in the current geopolitical crisis, which we're all facing into in trading. But if you come right back to you and I, it's because us, colleagues, humans, we actually want to work for companies that are purposeful. This was a survey that Harvard's Business Review did just actually last year, where 70% of people said they only want to work for people that are really purposeful, that they understand why they're getting out of bed in the morning. And it's not just about salary, it's about the job, it's about the company, it's about what you're going about doing. And 90% are far more satisfied and far more loyal if they feel that much broader engagement with an organization. And I'm sure as individuals, we can all relate to that. And actually, post-COVID, I think it's not just where people would position that on Gen Z, saying that's what the future want. I think all generations have been questioning life balance, not work-life balance, but life balance. And therefore, how can companies try and attract people for the time they want to spend in life really working to be the best they can be and to deliver phenomenal, phenomenal outcomes? So I think it's really important for colleagues to make that happen. Then I look at consumers. Well, we're also colleagues, we're also people that buy. And we really want to buy from companies that are really ethical. And that's what the survey says, is I want to buy from people that are really ethical. And actually, I'm prepared to pay a bit more. Now, here's the rub. I don't believe that. I don't believe yet that people are ready to pay more. They want to do it, but are they doing it? I know certainly with one of my hats on, we've got a fantastically fastest growing sofa company in the UK called Sofology. And they've actually worked with George Clark, fantastic designer, to create a completely circular sofa called the Gaia. And it's very popular. They have a Green Friday, not a Black Friday, because they're never on sale. It's not about greenwashing, it's about launching new products. And this is a 99% vegan, totally, you can reuse it, you can repurpose it, you can recycle it, and it brings so much attention in. But if the fit's not right, if the fabric's not right, and if the price is not right, it might bring them in, but actually, all of those have to deliver, and then I'll choose to pay a little bit more for something ethical. So I think we've got to make sure, when we look at this broader purposeful world, we don't just get caught up in the fact that the theory, because the practice is, some of this is really quite hard, and I think society's a little bit behind what they say they want to do and what they actually want to do. But we also clearly have the pressure from shareholders. And I think private companies actually have been ahead of the game on this, because typically family-run, family-owned, privately owned businesses have always had a much more balanced view. That was my background, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. But having worked in family business, and then having worked with so many family businesses, that seems to be just inherent in what they do. But typically, private equity now are getting far more focused on your ESG credentials, something we probably didn't talk about 5 years ago, that's common parlor now across most boardrooms. So private equity firms are looking to make sure they improve by the end. And then, of course, you've got a lot of the public company and the BlackRocks of this world. And yes, Larry Fink can talk from a very high position, but the reality is, I can tell you, if you're trying to secure funding and you don't actually have some real environmental KPI like what you're doing in FSC would or how you're reducing your carbon footprint, it is much more difficult to get cost-effective finance and much more difficult to get engagement across the piece. So I think there's no doubt that ESG is here and here to stay. And just touching on the E a little bit, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Bless you. I think that's why, from trying to make sure you get engagement across the climate, we all want to reduce our carbon footprint. But do we actually, can we all save when we put it into our recycling boxes and it's Sunday night and you're running late, and if you've got young children or elderly parents or something you're trying to get ready for, do you clean all these dishes before you put them in the recycling box, or do you just chuck it in? That actually completely reduces the effectiveness of recycling, which we probably all know, but we've all at that moment we've run out of time. You know, even from little actions like that, through to actually truly, how do we get our net zero down significantly over a serious period of time? And that's why I think a lot of companies have started to shy away from having scientific-based targets, because it is really hard to deliver a net zero plan over a 20, 30-year period of time. And therefore, they're looking at how they can work with suppliers, how we can look with government, how we can really drive it. And if any of you are planning a holiday in Europe, I don't need to say that it's so hot over there, not just from the cyclone coming through, but from some of the climate changes. We all know we've got a burning platform. And that's why I go back to what Sydney Smith said, is we can all think that's too hard and not get started, or we can start with baby steps and do what we can do to make that happen. So that's just a little bit about the E. But if I move on, which if it lets me, here we go. Just a little bit about the charity sector. Moving on to the S, where I think for a long time companies have been focused on diversity, equity, now not equality, because different people with different backgrounds need different help for them to really be the best form of themselves. And I think that's a fantastic understanding that's come through in the last couple of years. But trying to make sure you're a place where you welcome everybody, where you bring your whole self to work. One of the big areas is people are focusing on the communities from which they're attracting colleagues and the communities in which their customers are being served and how they're giving back to that community. And one of the ways is through their charity partners. And most people, one way or t'other, do have a charity partner. Well, for us, it's quite challenging stats because in the charity sector, and this is a UK charity sector basis, you'll find that on average, 57% increase in demand on charities. And that's off the back of the fact that 53% are not quite sure they can see a way through the next 2 to 3 years. And the reason they can't is because half of all charities have actually dipped into the reserves, which is typically only 3 months for a charity, in order to fund that demand and supply. So the sector, and I'm sure all of us in this room, either ourselves, a family member, or a friend, has benefited from one charity for one thing or another. That sector is really in need of a lot of help. And actually, the UK population wants to help, but they can't afford to help the way they used to before, which is why 73% of people say they now want to give little and often. By that, they mean they don't want commitments. Direct debits have fallen significantly. In fact, in 2022, on average, people gave a third less than they did in 2021. And that's not because they want to, it's because they don't have the resources to do what they want to do. Whereas if it can be more spontaneous, either a big campaign, how generous people are when there was the deck appeal for what was happening in the horrendous efforts and issues over in Ukraine, if there's an opportunity to spontaneously give, that's where you see people really coming to the fore. And so that's where I'd like to now just show you a little bit about Penneys and the journey we've been on.
Penneys has been hard work, showing that authentic social impact is achievable and can still be delivered in a simple and easy way that will create huge impact. For the everyday consumer, Penneys has become an amazing opportunity to be part of something much bigger, to create positive impact without significant cost, doing good. We've seen Penneys micro-donations continue to rise, now receiving a donation every second, raising thousands of pounds every day, every week. And at a time when demand on the charity sector is at an all-time high, Penneys is needed now more than ever. So we need your help. We invite businesses to join us, helping to provide a national omni-channel platform to grow the micro-donation movement, protect the vital funds desperately needed by charities your customers and colleagues care so deeply about. With over 100 brands now live across 10,000 stores and venues, 20 websites and apps, Penneys growth is accelerating. This acceleration is set to increase, generating massive positive impact in our communities through your amazing customers and colleagues. As we venture to an uncertain future, there is still something we can all afford to do. Every cardholder in the UK donated just 35p every week. We can inject an extra £1 billion into the charity sector. This is the tipping point. So, be part of this. Be part of something huge. Help us grow micro-donations so that more people can give a little and often, adding up to making a big difference for so many. Together, today. And remember, it all starts with the humble penny.
So we've been on quite a journey over the last 12 years, and it's really quite special. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody in this room who's either donated, helped us with the technology, or is already live in your platform supporting one of the charities that you care about. Because all we are as Penneys is a small team with a pretty big vision, and a lot of amazing, fantastic partners that are turning it into reality. And we never forget how much we really, really appreciate it. So sincerely, thank you to everyone that's already involved. And I hope today will spark a few of you that are not to maybe understand a little bit more about what it would take. But if you take a penny, and I talked about those humble pennies, on average at Penneys, we are about 70% in store and 30% on app or online. Indeed, our first merchant ever to go live was Domino's back in 2010. And Domino's agreed they would go live for 3 months, and here we are over 12 years later. And every 10 minutes now, their customers' pennies that are rounded up funds an hour of care for a teenager fighting cancer, which is really quite phenomenal from the odd humble penny when we're probably overindulging in 2 for 1 on a Tuesday, and we can afford to put in that extra penny. And it's that makes you smile. And that's what Penneys is all about. It's about making you feel good about what that means. Another big app partner of ours is Screwfix. Screwfix worked with us. They had their own charity partners, and then they've got their own Screwfix Foundation, which we also support. And now every 2 days, when these many people choose to click and round up their orders, they can fund a project in the local community to help transform a safe space for children that want to play, or for old people that want the safety to go out in a protected area, or whatever it is that that village needs. That's an awful lot. Then you take a smaller merchant like Montezuma's, who was our first on the Adobe platform, Magento, got to get both in, but that Adobe commerce platform, you know, Montezuma's were first, a relatively small business who's had huge purpose at heart. They support children in the edge that takes children in Uganda out of really difficult places and put them in a safe home, educate them, and help unlock their potential. Every week, they fund 1 child to be safe for a year. So whatever size you are, from Domino's to Screwfix to Montezuma's, the opportunity there to support your charity is absolutely massive. And for us, it's very circular. So it's back to this, it's actually a circular opportunity. Clearly, consumers often want the support of charities. Charities need the support of organisations to help them make money. In Penneys' case, we need to work with even more of your agencies out there where we can help you understand how you take the Penneys asset that's sitting in the marketplace, it's relatively easy to plug and play, and the single biggest thing is people said, I didn't even know who you were. I don't know how to do it, I don't know. And we don't have a marketing budget, which is again why I say thank you to GH Group for inviting us today as their charity partner, because our goal is to make more people understand the story and hopefully inspire you to take action and join in. And where you can, we found some of those agencies have used their volunteering days, where colleagues and engineers have felt, great, actually, I can use my energy in a way that I can use my talent and unlock a real force for good. And all of those customers that the agencies have, clearly they can get real benefit and a real value add. And for the merchants amongst you, it is your charity that you nominate. Yes, we are a charity. We don't do this to make money. We do it as a charitable endeavour. But it's your charity where the majority of the funds will go. Whether that be a campaign for children in need or something, November or whatever you'd like it to be, whether it be a local charity, whether it be a national charity, you choose what your colleagues and your customers want to support. And then we do everything else as much as you need, from case studies to internal management information, to colleague communications, to whatever you need on the social platform. We really can make it really easy for you to feel great and to really make a huge difference. So I guess I'd like to close by saying, I started saying it feels good to do good. And I'd like to hope you feel today it feels good to do good. We'd like to think as Penneys, with all of you as partners, we really could make that billion-pound vision a reality. If any of you've had a Montezuma chocolate, I can recommend the lime chili and basil. It's white chocolate, so if you don't have a sweet tooth, maybe pick a different one. But it's just equivalent to one of those truffles once a week from every banked adult that would unlock that £1 billion. But Penneys can't do it alone. We can share the story, we can inspire you, but if you'd like to do good, be good, feel good, please do come and talk to us. We'll be up in the marketplace with my colleague Rob and I, and wherever your background, wherever your interest, and if you've got challenges with what we do, please share that too, because we're here to learn. Nobody's ever going to say that's not an issue. If there's an issue, talk to us. Let us understand if we've fixed it, or let us understand if we need to take away and look at it. A good example was last week. I was with a number of large merchants where we're really working on, for visually impaired people at checkout, so not online but at checkout, how do we make sure it's really clear who the charity is and what the opportunity is, so we're really inclusive for everybody that's going shopping. That's not easy for other things, never mind pennies, but we're ready to lean in and work out what we need to do. So I'll close by saying, please don't walk past a penny. If you see a penny, pick it up. It'll give you good luck, but also it'll help you remember that little steps for you as an individual or for you as a company can help unlock a more purposeful organisation. Thank you for your time this afternoon.